Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to our recording about the updated designs for the Tufts Street Reconstruction project. Our agenda for this presentation is to share with you a bit about who we are and what we do, describe what the project encompasses, provide an overview of the concept design presented last fall, talk through what we have done and learned since the last community meeting in October 2023, describe other design considerations, answer some outstanding questions we received at the last community meeting, describe the updated design, and walk you through next steps. I was looking for that. A public street is not only designed by one person or one city department. Like any project, it takes a team to make a project a successful one. I'd like to share with you a few of the many people that have shaped Tufts Street design. The two city departments who manage the design and construction of Tufts streets are engineering and mobility. Our engineering team director, Brian Postlethwaite, oversees the project. Rebecca Wright is the senior project manager for streetscapes and will manage the reconstruction and has been involved with us throughout the project. For mobility, we have Adam Polinsky, a senior planner in our division, Kate White, outreach and engagement planner, and myself, Viola Augustine, the senior planner on the project. Our teams work to make our streets safer and implement larger citywide plans to support accessibility, safety, and sustainability. Summer Vision 2040 is one of those important plans. It's the city's comprehensive plan that captures the city's values and goals. Summer Climate Forward, a plan that includes policies, programs, and strategies to address climate change, is another guide for us. And for streets in particular, the American with Disabilities Act Transition Plan, Complete Streets and Safe Streets Ordinance, and our Somerville Bicycle Network Plan all guide our designs. We also have the city's Vision Zero Action Plan. This plan is a commitment by the city to eliminate deaths and serious injuries on our streets. The city's Vision Zero Action Plan provides a strategy that is based on the recognition that we are all human and make mistakes. Designing our streets to include traffic calming elements reduces speeds, is an important tool to make our city safe to walk, wheel, bike, and drive in. Most likely we all drive at some point. We should all keep the shown statistic in mind. If you drive 20 miles per hour or less, you will do your part to prevent serious crashes. And now I will turn it over to Kate White, who will introduce the Tufts Reconstruction project.
Thanks, Viola. So I'm going to walk us through an overview of the project. We'll start with the limit of work. We plan to reconstruct sidewalks and repave Tufts Street as part of the city's pavement and sidewalk management program. With this opportunity, we also aim to redesign the street to make it much more safer and comfortable for all users. This project includes the entirety of Tufts Street, from Cross Street to Washington Street, including improvements on Cross Street where it intersects with Tufts Street. At this time, it does not include improvements to Washington Street. However, we're excited to share that the MBTA aims to make improvements that include efforts to extend the curb, provide a small segment of protected bicycle lane, and float the bus stop. Floating bus stops provide dedicated waiting and a lighting space for bus riders. And it also includes moving the crosswalk more west to be able to make it easier to get to the East Somerville Green Line station. The MBTA plans to install a rapid flashing beacon, or also what you can see is a flashing crosswalk sign that will be push button activated and blinks yellow. And we anticipate this work to take place in 2024. Just to help kind of put some ideas of what's included in the project and what it's not, we wanted to share what are the elements that are definitely included. As we described, we aim to reconstruct all of the sidewalks and curb ramps, repave the entire street, plant new trees, install new and improved crosswalks, make minor parking regulation changes, construct new landscaped areas, install traffic calming, and change the width of the sidewalk. In this project, we do not aim to include substantial utility work, make changes to street lighting, one way the street or change any of the network design, and install traffic signals or construct green stormwater infrastructure. To reconstruct a street, we first we wanted to provide a bit of a timeline of this entire project, and you can check on our website to see the work from the beginning of this project to now. But we just want to provide an overview of the timeline. To reconstruct a street, we first work on developing a concept. The conceptual design development phase started last summer, where we gathered feedback from community members about their transportation safety concerns and their priorities for the street. We also shared out potential concept ideas to see initial community reactions. Taking all of that feedback and really aligning our development with our guiding plans, we developed a concept idea which we shared in October 2023. And here we looked to gather community feedback, field questions, and kind of clarify what are the directions of the project. From October to November, we collected this feedback, and we also worked with our engineering consultants, and we collaborated with other departments like fire, the Department of Public Works, and parking, and public space and urban forestry to build out a more defined and updated design. As we work in this stage, the design ideas are turned into technical drawings with all the details necessary to build the street. And we were able to tweak out kind of what are some of the constraints. We're now coming back to you with that kind of updated design or near final design to hear your questions and comments. We consider any potential changes and work towards a finalized design to move towards pre-construction later this year. So we're kind of pulling out that design from July and August right now to move towards a later fall finalizing those designs. And then we work to prepare for construction. So this means the project designs go out to bid, and then we look for a contractor. And after a contractor has been signed, they can start to mobilize and construction can begin. And we anticipate construction to take place between 2025 and 2026. So I'll now hand it back to Viola to talk about our concept from last fall, summarize that, and go into other considerations for the street.
Yes, so the last October, as Kate just said, we shared you the chosen concept based on feedback from our summer and early fall outreach. And in the next few slides, I will recapture what we proposed for the Tufts street redesign that we call then meandering opportunities. Before going into the design itself, I want to reiterate the design considerations for Tufts streets. One of them is the street is designated as a neighborway in the Somerville Bicycle Network Plan. And neighborways are walk and bike friendly streets that create low stress bicycle experiences on residential streets. They are designed to have fewer and slower cars to feel comfortable for people of all ages and abilities to ride a bike. And they provide a residential street alternative for people riding bicycles without adding full bicycle lanes and having minimal parking regulation changes. Adapted from Designing for all ages and abilities, published by the National Association of City Transportation Officials, also called NACTO, neighborways requirements include an average motor vehicle speed of less than 20 miles per hour, less than 2,000 daily average vehicle volumes, and less than 50 motor vehicles per peak hour in peak direction. And that is what we're aiming to achieve with any new design on Tufts. Tufts Street also connects to other bicycle facilities. Besides intersecting with the existing bicycle lanes on Washington Street, Tufts Street also connects to a new quick-built neighborway on Glen Street. We will have a slide on what neighborway treatments are later in this presentation. But you will also see quick-built neighborway treatments this summer when we install them, as shown on the plan, on Glen Street, on Ellsworth Street, part of Rush Street, and at the East Somerville Community School, and onto Otis Street. These connections include the Capuano Early Childhood Center, the East Somerville Community School, Winter Hill at Edgerly School, and the Commercial Corridor on East Broadway. In redesigning any street, we consider the critical operational and maintenance needs to ensure that they can still occur in the newly configured street. For emergency services, Tufts Street is an important connection for access to serve Brick Bottom, Inner Belt, Cobble Hill, and the larger East Somerville neighborhood, as seen on the plan here. Fire trucks need to be able to access the street to connect to Cross Street and Washing Street, as well as be able to pass cars coming from either direction. For DPW, snow and trash removal, trash trucks need to be able to turn onto and off of Tufts Street to service the area. Plows need to be able to clear the street of snow, and currently the MBTA Route 90 bus route includes a southbound connection on Tufts Street. Therefore, buses need to be able to travel approximately once per hour on the street. With all of that in mind, we shared a concept in October 2023 that includes transforming Tufts Street into a meandering 12 feet wide yield condition street. Yield streets are not uncommon in Somerville, but often look like narrower two-way streets with parking both sides. Examples include Lake Street, Perry Street, and Nashua Street. The concept used wider sidewalks and new landscape areas to provide more space for people walking and wheeling, and new greenery and trees. We included dedicated pullover spaces to allow vehicles and bicycles a space to move out of the side and allow oncoming traffic to travel past them, and that is because of the yield street condition. The meandering nature encourages people driving to slow down and make it safer for people biking to travel along the street. We also proposed new crossings with raised intersections at Dell and Glen Street, along with new raised crosswalks across and parallel to Cross Street, Knowlton, and Washington Street. For more information about this, check out the recording of the second Tufts Street community meeting, or check out our concept design handout, all to be found on our webpage. We have proposed these ideas to meet the concerns about speeding along Tufts Street, create new crossing connections along the street, and provide more trees and plants to increase shade and make the street more comfortable. Kate will next describe how we gathered feedback last fall based on this concept and what we learned both in community engagement and due diligence, data collection, and analysis. My apology. Here.
Thanks, Viola. So as Viola described, I'm going to share kind of what we've learned both in community engagement as well as some further due diligence our team has been working on. So from September 2023 through to December 2021, we aim to provide a variety of ways that community members could participate and share their input on the concept of design, with a specific focus on reaching those who've been historically underrepresented and underheard through activities like direct street outreach and attending community events in multiple languages. This graphic kind of shows some of those examples. We began with a virtual community meeting on October 11th after flying homes on the street in the neighboring area. We then also hosted an online feedback survey for approximately about a month and a half. We hosted two street outreach pop-ups, one right at the intersection with Knowlton Street and another at the Capuano Early Childhood Center right at school dismissal. We attended 4 community events, and this included examples like Summer Street's Monster Mash, along with the Spanish and Portuguese community meetings, and a specific event with Council on Aging for an Asian Tea Party in December. We also consulted with our city commissions and committees that advise on a variety of different transportation projects and policies. This includes our Commission for Persons with Disabilities, our Bicycle Advisory Committee, and our Pedestrian Transit Advisory Committee. And this kind of totaled an overall approximately over 230 people. Now I want to share a little bit about what we heard about the concept design. We kind of broke this down into different themes for you. So starting with sidewalks, we heard strong support for widening sidewalks to create more space for people walking and to allow for new plantings. We heard some opposition to the proposed changes because it precluded parking. We heard support for redoing the sidewalks to improve accessibility and comfort, not only for folks with disabilities, but especially for people traveling with strollers or grocery carts. Many people just advocated for better walking infrastructure in general. And community members responded positively to the proposed new crossings. Many shared that they supported raised crosswalks to reduce speaking and make it safer to cross. And we heard strong support for the new raised crosswalks kind of at both ends of the street, as well as at the new raised intersections at Glen and Dell. Some requested tweaking to the one at Washington and Knowlton, and requested more curb extensions and raised crosswalk across Cross Street. Some further advocated for raised crossing on Cross Street kind of closer to the bridge to slow vehicles coming down off the bridge and make a more direct connection to the new community path entrance. Um, and then many asked for improvements across Washington Street to connect with the station, such as moving it closer to make it more visible. There were some visually impaired users who helped provide feedback on the raised crosswalk and how they can sometimes create accessibility issues, and walked us through some of the elements that would make it much easier to navigate. Getting into some of the traffic feedback that we received, we did receive concerns about the feasibility of the yield condition and kind of received inquiries for further data collection or comparison to other similar conditions in other cities. Many community members supported overall traffic calming and the desire to reroute vehicles who were using Tufts Street to bypass McGrath Highway. Some supported the pullover treatments, but advocated for clear signage to indicate the traffic pattern. And some shared just concerns around new traffic calming treatments and shared their experience that sometimes they felt the neighborhood traffic circles that were used on Pearl Street may not have resulted in safer driving. We also just got requests for adding speed humps to the design. We heard a lot of support for just repaving the street and getting rid of the potholes. Um, and then getting into some of the plantings and amenities feedback we heard, many just shared their support for more trees and green space, describing that trees can make the street more pleasant to be on, and plantings can help with storm water and potentially provide shade. Some residents were interested in additions of murals and art. And we heard both in the first round of feedback as well as this, just kind of the desire to make more pretty the large white wall at 50 Tufts Street. We heard some concerns around existing light on the street and just heard requests for benches and trash cans. Some opposed just additional greenery as they saw it excessive or preferred to have parking options. Getting into bike facilities, there was some support for new biking conditions in the concept, as well as some concern around the efficacy of the traffic calming to make it a neighborway condition safe for biking in the travel lane. Some suggested making the pullover segments kind of more separated bike infrastructure. And some asked for waiting areas to make turns easier while biking. Some oppose the designs that require people biking to dismount at intersections or pull over to allow oncoming traffic. And some advocated for painting the crosswalk across Washington Street with green markings to indicate that it could be shared use with folks both walking, wheeling, and biking. We heard just a lot around turns onto Tufts Street, especially around Washington Street. And some residents who, getting into some of the parking concerns, some residents who live nearby shared their concern and stress about the lack of parking in the concept. They described that it's currently difficult to find parking, and they were concerned that the demand could increase with the opening of 31 Tufts Street. Some felt that installing more trees did not preclude parking, and some shared their concern about people illegally parking in the pullover areas, causing traffic jams. Kind of want to round out our kind of feedback summary, which is kind of an overall question we asked in the survey. So we just asked folks about their general feedback on the concept. We had 63 people contribute to our survey. And of that group, about a quarter supported the design. Over 30% supported it, but wanted some changes. Over 17% didn't support the design, but liked some elements. And about a quarter, or nearly a quarter, opposed the design. To see all the feedback we heard, please check out our concept design community engagement report. It's available on our project website at somervillema.gov/Tufts Street. So to share a little bit else what we learned, we conducted a Yield Street demonstration with the fire department last November to really kind of just test some of the ideas. We simulated this with traffic cones and kind of indicated the traffic pattern change with video message boards. The fire department also tested driving standard and longer tower fire trucks along the stretch of street. In our observations of the demonstration, we saw that vehicles traveled at less than 20 miles per hour during the demonstration. As you can see in the photo, there are speed radar feedback signs on Tufts Street, so it's very easy to monitor speeds during our demonstration. Once we removed the cones, we actually saw speeds increase to 20 miles per hour or faster. We saw more vehicles travel northbound than southbound along Tufts Street, and saw vehicles traveling southbound yield to oncoming traffic before entering the demonstration. The fire trucks drove without problem in both directions, but some of the people driving used the pullover space, but during the demonstration, some people used the pullover spaces while some didn't and caused gridlock. During the demonstration, one vehicle illegally parked, seemingly to drop off food, and this prevented a pullover opportunity and this caused traffic. So some of the lessons we learned were that pullover areas need to be long enough to account for people illegally parking and need to be clearly identified and designed for easy access. In particular, the entrance to Tufts Street from Washington Street needs to be wider to accommodate more traffic at peak times. And the design needs to consider aggressive and confused driving behavior. We also collected some parking utilization data just to help us better understand the demand in the immediate area. So we did this for 2 days in October at two different times, one at midday and one at night. Night, we tend to see the highest demand in our city, but we also wanted to see what the daytime activity was like, especially as there is a school nearby. The study area included streets within a walking distance from Tufts Street of less than about 0.4 miles. Walking at a slower pace, 0.5 miles would take just under 12 minutes. So some of the results we saw is that at noon, about 102 residential parking permit spaces out of 267 were available for parking. And there were 19 school drop-off and school parking lot spaces out of 53 available. At night, and this is approximately 38%, at night, 57 residential parking spaces out of 267 were available for parking, and there were 44 school drop-off and school parking lot spaces out of 53 available. So it's about 21% for residential spaces. In comparison, before parking was removed on Tufts Street for the Green Line extension construction, there were 25 on-street spaces available. So if you're interested in learning more, again, we encourage you to check out our report at our project website. And lastly, I'll round out some of the work that we've done since then with our soil analysis. We worked with consultants to examine the soil and depths of potential contamination to understand if there would be impacts in the Tufts Street construction. As you can see in a map here, there is Mass DEP has been monitoring a site that was contamination from the from former work conducted in 50 Tufts Street. They took 16 boring samples on Tufts Street, and only one volatile organic compound, or VOC, was detected at one boring between 5 and 10 feet deep. The level detected was less than the reportable concentration level. All 15 other samples reported non-detectable levels of VOCs. So we're really glad to hear that, and it doesn't dramatically impact construction on Tufts Street. So I'm now going to hand it back to Viola to tell us more about the updated design.
Thank you, Kate. The final set of slides will now describe in detail the updated design that responds to all the feedback we received. Before going into the details, I want to reiterate our overall design goals derived from feedback and operational requirements. The reconstruction of Tufts Street should make the street safer, accessible, and more comfortable. Safety is important for people walking, riding, driving, and for emergency access. We aim to achieve this by designing for lower speeds, less cars using Tufts Street, providing safer crossings, and ensuring clear passage for fire trucks. Accessible sidewalks and crossings can be accomplished by widening sidewalks, using smooth pavement, and considering accessibility challenges when designing crosswalks. Comfort and an overall more pleasant environment is created by adding trees and planted areas, wider sidewalks to allow, for example, for benches, and by mitigating the white blank wall along the west side of Tufts Street. Here we see now the updated Tufts Street plan all the way from Cross Street to Washington Street. We responded to concerns about the yield street, both from the public and the fire department, and changed the design to maintain the two-way 20-foot wide road. But we added a few 12-inch wide pinch points for slowing traffic and making it less desirable to use the street to just pass through. We improved all intersections, Cross Street, Dell Street, Glen Street, and Washington Street. We continued to, we kept the added raised crosswalks at Dell Street and Glen Street. And we widened the sidewalks, added more landscape areas, and reintroduced a few parking spaces in 2 areas along the street. Looking a little closer at the section of Tufts Street between Cross Street and Glen Street, in this area we propose to upgrade the crossing across Dell Street to a raised crossing, add a raised crosswalk across Tufts at the Dell Street intersection, introduce 2 pinch points with a road width of 12 inches and therefore a wider sidewalk there, create an area for multi-purpose parking. And in this section, we will start the wall mural on the white wall to increase the comfort and experience. And all along the section, as well as the other one, sidewalks will be widened and more planted areas will be introduced. In the section between Glen Street and Washington Street, very similar, we will have a raised crosswalk and a neighborhood gateway treatment at Glen Street, and we'll go into details of that in a later slide. We have 2 pinch points, again at 12 feet width. The wall mural continues. We add another multi-purpose parking area, and again, more planting or landscaped areas and trees along the section. And besides the pinch points, we maintain the 20-foot wide roadway for a 2-way street. Looking at the cross street intersection, what we were able to accomplish is a safer crossing across Tufts with a raised crosswalk. We also narrowed the crossing. As you see, we have a wider sidewalk or curb extension. We added a raised crosswalk across Cross Street. There's a lot of crossing going on here. And then what we also achieved is a safer connection for bicycles in and out of Tufts Street and all the way to the community path. And as Kate mentioned, there was a desire for a crosswalk, additional crosswalk closer to the community path entrance and exits. And that would have been at the side of the bridge, the current cross street bridge, and the sidelines are so bad that we don't feel it's a safe way to introduce a crossing there. So in the interim, we are widening the sidewalk from Tufts Street to the bridge, and at the bridge it's already wider. And very much like it is at the Washington Street entrance to the community path and station, have a shared sidewalk where bicycles and pedestrians can access the community path. And what you see on the plan, the green areas are really where the bicycles can go in and out of Tufts Street, both coming from the north of Cross Street and from the south on that widened sidewalk. The intersection at Washington Street has also, we'll see huge improvements. The first ones I want to mention are actually the bus stop island or floating bus stop that Kate mentioned earlier, and a new crosswalk with the push buttons for activation of the blinking yellow light for pedestrians and for people on bikes. As Kate mentioned earlier, these are improvements that will be constructed by the MBTA. We have worked closely with them and we're able to integrate their design with a bicycle connection and an improved intersection at Tufts and Washington itself. And you see again, the green areas are the bicycle movements from Washington Street to Tufts. And the movement then will go onto the sidewalk on Washington Street and the east side of Washington Street, not like east-south. And that shared sidewalk is the connection to the East Somerville Green Line station and also to the community path. For the intersection at Knowlton and crossing Tufts Street, there were some technical challenges to make them raised. So what we're accomplishing, or were we able to accomplish, though, is to shorten the distance, especially across Tufts Street, and that should make it safer and for pedestrians, and also slow down vehicles. In addition to all those improvements, we also increased the scope a little bit into Knowlton Street to widen the sidewalk on the west side around the tree, to make that an accessible sidewalk, i.e. wide enough to have at least 4 feet for pedestrian movement. And this, both intersections, I didn't mention it, will have signage to introduce the neighborways. As you remember, Tufts Street is a neighborway, and we'll show some details of that. So to go a little bit more into the details, or explain more all the interventions that are keep occurring along Tufts Street, we have mentioned the raised intersection and crosswalks, and these are commonly seen all throughout Somerville, and they're crosswalks that are basically raised and let the pedestrians continue on sidewalk level, and this enables people using wheelchairs and other mobility devices and strollers to cross more easily, and make drivers slow down and increase visibility when people crossing. The pinch points are kind of a newer thing in Somerville, and we've explained it before, but again, they narrow the they narrow the road, and because of that, cars have to wait and slow down, let other cars through. The pinch points on Tufts Street are about 12 feet wide. And what that allows is wider sidewalks, and these sidewalks then create opportunity for planted areas or benches, or to make sure that access is provided around existing utility poles. Neighborway treatments, we talked a lot about in the previous slides. This is a markup of a quick-built neighborway gateway that we have mentioned will be installed on Glen Street and all the way connecting through Otis Street. The gateway provides a safer intersection for people walking, driving, and biking, and it creates a short contraflow bicycle lane, because the neighborways allow bicycles to go in both directions, even though it's a one-way street otherwise. And just want to mention that at the intersection of Glen and Tufts Street, the Glen and Otis project will add a quick build treatment of this gateway, but then the Tufts Reconstruction project will turn this gateway treatment into a permanent treatment. And what you will see along Tufts Street and also along Glen and Otis and at the intersections are these purple branding signs. So they are signs indicating that you enter a neighborway, and also you will see these neighborway pavement symbols along the street to reiterate for people for using the street that you're in a neighborway, you should give pedestrians and bicyclists the priority. We mentioned the additional landscape areas and wider sidewalks. This is sort of a typical section that's right next to Glen Street. And the plan shows that the pinch point allowed us to widen the sidewalk, and then the green areas are all landscaped areas where we will aim to use native plants, and we can add trees in a much healthier environment. We can also accommodate benches in these areas. And at the lower part, you see that the round circle there is a utility pole, and we were kind of able to use a planted area so that the utility pole is more at the edge of the sidewalk and not right in the middle of the sidewalk. And it also allowed us to create a 4-foot minimum accessible sidewalk path around the utility poles, which in a lot of cases, especially on the west side of Tufts Street, is not the case currently. The sidewalks there are too narrow to be accessible. I want to briefly mentioned trees. We will add a lot of trees, but the current trees are not in good shape, so most of them we're planning to remove. But 4 of the ones that our urban forestry division told us are healthy enough, and we are maintaining them. You see one of them at the top of this drawing, and you again see how we incorporated a planted area around this tree that is currently situated and with a sidewalk with it. It's not an accessible sidewalk. So we are accomplishing a lot of the things that you have asked for and that we were all aiming for. And then the multi-purpose parking options, that the 2 areas that we're introducing, one between Cross Street and Glen Street and the other between Glen and Washington Street. In those, we want to provide different types of parking throughout the day to accommodate different needs. And what we've seen and heard is that it's permanent resident parking is wanted, but also the need for quick delivery. Kate mentioned the gridlock that created by one of the food deliveries at the demonstration project. So we acknowledged the need for that and created these areas. And what we're proposing is a loading zone in the daytime and longer term resident parking overnight. And in Somerville, these loading zones can be used for 20-minute loading, unloading for commercial vehicles, and 5 minutes parking for passenger vehicles to pick up and drop off things. And then last but not least is the wall mural. And we're very excited about this. This will be installed already within the next month. And there is, this was done with the support from Somerville Arts Council. There was a grant that Neighbor Waste Design, our consultant for the Glen Street and Otis project, have been able to get. And as we said, it will be on the white wall along 50 Tufts Street. And the art includes motifs of bicycles, trees, and birds. And the mural is inspired by the community members who advocated for brightening up the wall and making the street more welcoming to the art. And I think now I give it back to Kate for the next steps.
Thanks, Viola, and thank you again, everyone who stayed tuned in to learn more about the project. We are excited to hear your feedback. We have a survey available to kind of share your thoughts or overall feelings about the project. This is available until August 2nd. We will also have a street outreach pop-up at the intersection of Tufts Street and Knowlton on July 23rd from 5 to 7. Unless there's inclement weather, and we'll host it on July 30th, so make sure to check the website if you're interested in participating to see if we've changed it to the inclement weather date. We'll also have a virtual office hours on July 25th from 5:30 to 7:30. So this is where you can sign on to a Zoom meeting and talk with the project team one-on-one for approximately 2 to 5 minutes about your questions, and you can come in at any time between 5:30 and 7:30. And lastly, feel free to, if you just want to share your comments via email to our team at transportation@somervillema.gov, or to call our team at 311, which you can call by 617-666-3311. And I just want to wrap up as Viola when we move into final design, development, construction, we're going to capture all those final comments and feedback on the proposed design and then kind of pull that together for that finalized design and prepare for construction. So we anticipate this to be in late fall. And as I mentioned, we anticipate construction to take place between 2025 and 2026. And when that occurs, we'll make sure to use that same project website to update community members on, what are some of the construction plans going on, where they ask questions. That will all be available in the same places you find all the designs now. And lastly, I just want to end that if you're interested in participating in art making and the wall mural, our team is looking for folks interested in designing small parts or helping out. So if you are interested, please reach out to somerville@neighborways.com. We anticipate the mural potentially beginning in July 13th, but again, we're going to be watching the weather. And so this is going to take place over the next month or so. You'll be able to see the progress directly on the wall. So with that, just thank you for your time and your engagement in this project. And please reach out to our team at transportation@somervillema.gov if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.